Uh, Welcome students again. This is our third lecture. As you know that last time we have discussed and we have started about the sexual reproduction in plants. Of course, it is the higher plants where the sexual reproduction takes place. In the last lecture, we have discussed and studied about the male gametophyte development. As you know that the male reproductive part in the flower is the androecium. And androecium consists of three different parts. For example, that is three parts are the elongated part, which is hair-like cylindrical part known as the filament. Then the connective and uppermost part is known as the anther. Now, this anther, last time we have discussed that the details of the anther, that is when we take the section of the anther, then we can see the all details of what are present inside that. I will briefly I will get again the same structure about the anther TS. So the coverage or the covering layers are known as the epidermis, endodermis or endothecium, then middle layer and the tapetum. So all these are the layers surrounding to the specialized chamber or the sac, which is known as the pollen sac. And in pollen sac, sporogenous cells are present. These sporogenous cells, as they get the nourishment from the tapetum, and during the maturity up to this, the sporogenous cells are converted into microspore mother cells. Now these microspore mother cells, they undergo the meiosis. So these sporogenous cells, of course, they are diploid, but when they enter inside the division, special type of division known as the meiosis, where the meiosis takes place, the microspore mother cell divides and it produces about the 4 cells. These 4 cells are haploid because meiosis, as you know that it is the reductional cell division, and hence each cell, that means 4 cells are developed, which are now known as the pollen grain. So these pollen grains are very small, they are microscopic, so they are also known as the microspores. And this pollen grain, as we have discussed that having 2 layers, outer is the exine layer, which is a somewhat hard protecting layer, and sporopollenin, that is the combination or the chemical substance by which it is made, and it is very much protected because of environmental conditions, light, temperature, or even some chemicals, even though this exine remain intact. So outer coverage is called as exine, inner is called as the intine. Exine is not a total covering, or it leaves some gaps, some small pores are there, it is called as the germ pores. And through this germ pore, as you know that the pollen tube emerges out. During the maturity, what happens? During the male gametophyte development, which occurs at 2 different places. And here, the intine comes out. And then it carries the 2 cells, which are called as the male gametes. These male gametes are non-motile. So this, along with the pollen tube, these 2 male gametes comes out, and the further the formation or the gametophyte development completes. So this gametophyte development at 2 places. One is inside the anther, pollen sac. When it is released, that means in short we call as a pollination. When it is released, then it is 2-celled condition. That is the vegetative, larger one, and the generative cell. So in this stage, it is a transfer, that is called as the pollination. And when it deposits on the stigma, maybe of the same flower or the different flower, doesn't matter, but the pollen grain, when it received by the stigma, then because of some stimulation that is given by the stigma, it form the pollen tube. So it is an elongated structure, tube-like structure, so it is called as a pollen tube, which carry 2 non-motile male gametes. And in this way, the gametophyte male gametophyte development that completes. Okay, so that is ready for the fertilization. Now, what about the female gametophyte? Let us discuss in details. So, as you know that the flower consists of another part, that is the essential part, which is known as the gynoecium. Gynoecium is also known as the pistil, and gynoecium, the unit is called as a carpel. Carpel consists of 3 parts. In the last lecture we have discussed about that. This portion, if you see, it is a rounded structure at the tip of the carpel, and then here it goes down at the lower region. This is a hairy structure which is known as a style. This is a stigma, style and ovary. So this is all structure of carpel. So single carpel or many carpel doesn't matter, but this structure totally is called as the gynoecium. That is the female reproductive part. Now see this structure, stigma, which receives the pollen grain. What I told here, that after the male gametophyte development, when it is a bicelled condition, pollen grain received by the stigma, and further development of the male gametophyte takes place on the stigma, and pollen tube enlarges through the stylar canal, and then it reaches up to the ovary. Now ovary, where it is ovules are present. Here the ovules are present. So ovules are the important part where the reproduction, that is the fertilization, takes place. Okay. So this ovule, we are going to concentrate on the ovule and the structure of the ovule. Okay. In some cases ovule may be single, in some cases it may be many. So this ovule, that number varies plant to plant, but we are going to focus on the ovule and the detailed structure of the ovule. Now according to the attachment of the ovule with the placenta, so this is the placenta where ovule get attached. So according to the attachment to the placenta, ovules may be of different types, but in our book, in our syllabus, we are going to discuss only the anatropous ovule, and this ovule where micropylar end that lies near to the funicle, that is the stalk of the ovule. And let us discuss the details of the ovule, which here you can see that this ovule is there, which is anatropous. That means it is somewhat inverted, that is the micropylar end that directing downwards, and this is near to the point of attachment, that is hilum and the funicle. So funicle is the stalk of ovule. It is the stalk of the ovule, and this is the placenta. Okay. So this total structure, if you see, we will discuss all the different parts and what are the functions in brief. So first of all, the point of ovule where it attaches to the placenta, this is called as the funicle. It may be called as a funiculus, but it is a stalk of the ovule. Then the point of attachment with this body, this is a body and this is a stalk. Two main parts are there, stalk and the body. So body attaches to the funicle or the stalk, it is called as the hilum. It is called as a hilum. Okay. So this portion, that is the micropylar end, when it lies to the hilum and funicle, inverted type, that is the micropylar end facing downward direction, it is called as anatropous ovule. Okay. Now let us discuss all parts. What I said before, that is this is a placenta, attachment of ovule with this. Then funicle, it is the stalk of the ovule. Next is the hilum, that is the point of attachment of ovule body with the stalk, hilum. Then you can see that this is a somewhat a oval like structure, and it consists two ends, this end and this end. The upper end is called as a chalaza, so it is a chalazal end. So for our convenience, we are going to use this word end, two opposite ends. So it is named as the chalazal end, and second end, which is the micropylar end. Chalazal end is the intact, while the micropyle, it is the small opening, and this opening is having meaning, that means for the reproduction. This micropyle, this opening is utilized for the entry of pollen tube. Okay. Then next one, that this total structure is covered with some segment like structures or the coverings, which are called as the integuments. Integuments, these are the coverings or the layers you can see over the ovule. Integuments are two, those are outer and inner integuments. So you can see here outer integument and the inner integuments. So mainly in the angiospermic plants, the integuments are two. So it is called as the bitegmic integuments. Bitegmic. So two integuments are present. So outer one integument is somewhat harder than the inner integument. Next to that, you can see this portion, rounded portion, which is diploid, means 2n number. diploid cells are present, and it is called as the nucellus. 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 Nucellus is a part which is a diploid structure, or diploid cells are present. Okay, and inside that you can see here this structure, elongated, somewhat rounded, elongated structure known as embryo sac. It is called as, also known as the female gametophyte. Okay, so this is a female gametophyte or embryo sac, and this is the portion which is important for the reproduction, fertilization. Okay, and this consists of this this is a embryo sac which is a 7-celled and 8 nucleated structure. 7-celled means 7 cells are present, which are known as the upper 3 towards the chalaza end, known as 3 cells called antipodal cells. They are antipodals. 3 cells are there. Then opposite to that, again, what I have mentioned before, that is the opposite end is the micropylar end, where 3 cells are situated, in which the middle cell is called an egg. It is somewhat larger, while on the either side of the egg, synergids are present. So the total structure is called as an egg apparatus. Egg apparatus. So antipodal cells 3, egg apparatus 3, 6 cells, and the last cell is present at the center, very center, which is called as the secondary nucleus. Now, why it is called a secondary nucleus? Because it consists of 2 nuclei inside. In a single cell, 2 nuclei, and hence 3 cells towards chalazal, 3 cells towards micropylar, 6, and 7 cell at the center. So total 7 cells are present. But what about the nuclei? They are 8 nuclei, 3 here, and 2 at the middle. So those are 8 nucleated 7 cell structure, which is called as embryo sac or the female gametophyte. Now this is the mature structure of Anatropous oocyte. Just like that, what we have seen or discussed about the microsporogenesis, that is the male gametophyte development, same thing, female gametophyte development also takes place. That is called as the megasporogenesis. So in a pollen grain it is a microsporogenesis, here it is a megasporogenesis. As the name indicates, mega means larger than the microspore or the pollen grain. So come to the point that development of this embryo sac or the female gametophyte. Okay, so now we are discussing all the development takes place inside this nucellus. Already nucellus cells are diploid to n number, 2 sets of the chromosome. Okay, now this inside the nucellus, what happened? A cell towards the center become functional, and this cell, so I am talking about the nucellus, inside the nucellus, here inside, before the developing of this embryo sac. So this cell become functional, enlarges in size, and this cell, which is known as megaspore mother cell, it is a MMC, megaspore mother cell. Okay, it is diploid, having the 2 sets of chromosome, 2n, 2 sets of chromosome. So this diploid cell undergo meiosis. During the last lecture, we have also discussed about the meiosis, that is in a anther. The pollen grains are developed as a result of microspore mother cell, which gave rise to 4 cells, that is the reduction cell division. Reduction means what? The chromosome number reduced to half. If, for example, in the onion, 16 chromosomes are present in the diploid condition, then when it undergo the meiosis, newly formed cells, total 4 cells, they produce the cells which are haploid. Means what? Chromosome number reduced to half. If 16 numbers are there of the chromosome, then it reduced to 8, like that. So it is a reductional cell division. So same thing here happen here, that is the meiosis. This cell undergo meiosis, and this cell produces 4 cells. Now 4 cells, they are haploid. 4 cells are haploid, and they are arranged one above the other. They arrange one above the other, so it is called as the linear tetrad. Linear, that is in a line, in a straight line. So they are arranged one above the other, so it is called the linear tetrad. And this linear tetrad, this megaspores, now the meiosis completes. because as you know that the result of the meiosis, that is the development or the formation of the 4 cells. Now these 4 cells arrange one above the other, linear tetrad, linear fashion, and this out of these 4 cells, 3 cells degenerate or abort, which are facing toward the Chalazal end. Toward the Chalazal end, 3 cells degenerate, and only the lower cell that is facing toward the micropylar end remains active. This cell is the megaspore. Now it is haploid. Remember all the time, this is haploid having the reduction, because of the reduction cell division, chromosome number reduced to half. Then this megaspore, after the degeneration of these 3 cells, only one functional megaspore is there that undergo repeated cell division. But now this cell division is not meiosis. It never happened again, but it undergo mitosis. Mitosis is equational type of the cell division. That means the chromosome number, whatever they are present, they are remain as it is. So it is the equational cell division. Okay. So come to the point that megaspore, now this undergo 3 times in the mitotic type of the cell division. It is a 3 type. That means first mitosis takes place and it give rise to 2 cells, 2 nuclei. Okay. So first it is a single, when it undergo mitosis, first division, then it develops into 2 nuclei. Again it undergo with the second, that is the mitosis second. It give rise again the 4. That means 2 are already present. Again it undergo mitosis, give rise to 4 cells. And again it 4 cells, 4 nuclei undergo mitosis and develop into 8 cells. So 1, 2 and 3. 3 times it undergo mitotic type of the cell division. And hence, as a result of mitosis, single cell give rise to 2 cells. But in meiosis, remember, when meiosis takes place, it give rise to 4 cells. But in mitosis, single cell give rise to 2 cells. In this way, 3 mitotic cell division that result in the formation of total 8 cells. 4 cells towards the Chalazal end and 4 towards the micropylar end. Okay. Now, out of these 8 cells and out of these 4 which are present at the Chalazal end, 1 cell migrate towards the center from the Chalazal end. Same thing simultaneously, 1 cell from the micropylar end that again migrates toward the center. That means out of 4 cells, 1 migrate to center. Out of 4, again 1 migrate to center. So 3 left at both the poles, micropylar as well as the Chalazal. So these 2 cells come to the center and this cell fused. Now what is here? Cells fused but the nuclei remain separate. And hence single cell is developed. Because of 2 nuclei, it is called as the secondary nucleus. It is called as a secondary nucleus because 2 nuclei present in the single cell. So in this way, this secondary nucleus present at the center and 3 cells towards Chalazal end, 3 cells towards the micropylar end are separate. Now these 3 cells towards the Chalazal end now called as the antipodal cells. As we have written here, they are the antipodal cells. And 3 towards the micropylar end, now it is called as the egg apparatus. This egg apparatus which is consists of 2 synergids either side of an egg. So egg cell at the center and 2 synergids to the either sides. So in this way, 3 towards antipodal, 3 towards micropylar and 2 nuclei in a single cell situated at the center, it is called as the secondary nucleus. So in this way, the development of female gametophyte takes place complete. It is the female gametophyte, or it is also known as the embryo sac. So embryo sac or the female gametophyte. So development takes place, and you can see here this is the mature structure of the ovum. That means already embryo sac or female gametophyte present inside the nucellus. Now this female gametophyte is also ready for the further fertilization. That means female gametophyte is ready, male gametophyte is also ready. Now the next step is that the fertilization. And before fertilization, as you know that some certain stages must take place, certain steps must be taken before the fertilization, because the fertilization needs both the gametes, male gamete as well as the female gamete. But these two gametes are non-motile. They cannot move. They cannot move, and hence they are bring together by the process which is called as pollination. It is called as pollination. So pollination is the process which is the step for previous to the fertilization. It needs, and it is called as the pollination. So what is pollination? It is simply that the microspore or the pollen grains when deposit on the stigma of the flower, that is called as the pollination. Pollination is because of different agents. It requires agents because both are not motile or mobile, but they require some agents. So before that, the pollination, that is the process of movement of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the ovary or the gynoecium. This process is called as the pollination. Pollination is mainly of two types. It is called as a self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination, as the name indicates, you can see here, self-pollination as the name indicates, the pollination takes place in the same plant, same flower. But when it is of the same flower, it is called as autogamy. And second is called as the geitonogamy. So self-pollination, that is the pollination takes place in the same flower or on the same plant. If it is in the same flower, it is called as autogamy. That is, the pollination takes place in the same flower. And when the pollination takes place in different flower but on the same plant, then it is called as geitonogamy. So the main criteria of the self-pollination is that here only one plant is involved. It may be of the same flower or it may be of the different flower but on the same plant. When the pollination takes place, it is called as the self-pollination. But in other case, the cross-pollination takes place. So cross-pollination is in two different plants. Two plants are involved. That means the pollination takes place between two flowers which are present on two different plants. It is called as the cross-pollination. And cross-pollination again having the term that is used is known as the xenogamy. So the first is autogamy, second is the geitonogamy, and third one is the xenogamy. So basic thing is that in self-pollination, same plants, while in the cross-pollination, different plants, the pollination takes place. Now what is the genetical meaning of this? When the same type of the plant is utilized, the new offspring or the new generation, it is exactly similar to the mother plant. No variation, no changes in the characters, because same plant is there. It may be of the autogamy, it may be of the geitonogamy. Hence, there is no variation, but the characters remain same. While in the next one, if you see the cross-pollination where two plants are involved, the pollination takes place in two different plants, two different flowers. That means two plants which are, of course, they are from the same species. Same species. Now, what is the meaning of species? Suppose the pollination takes place between two hibiscus plants. They are hibiscus. Hibiscus plant, that is the shoe flower, you know. When two plants are there, they are known as the same species. Then the pollination is possible. So it is the same species. But when the species is different, the pollination cannot take place. When different species are there, pollination cannot occur. Okay. But in a cross pollination, what I told before, that the characters they show in the offspring or the next generation are different. Characters are different, that means the variation takes place. So here no variation. In a cell pollination, variation cannot be found. While in the cross pollination, variation takes place. As you know that the variation, which is the very important step for the evolution. If variation takes place, then and then only evolution is possible. But when there is no variation, evolution totally it is not possible. Okay. So here the cell pollination, the main theme is that the variation cannot occur, but in the cross pollination, variation takes place because two plants are involved, and both plants they may have different characters. So there is a mixing of the characters, some parental or some maternal, like that. Two plants having the two different types of the characters and mixing takes place, and hence variation takes place, variation occur, and newly formed, that is the progeny or the offspring, may show different types of the variation or variation characters. So variety of the characters can be observed with the help of the cross pollination. Okay. Now next thing is that the agents for the pollination. Agents for pollination. Again, these agents are categorized into two. As per the agent, where they are living or not, these agents they are of different types. Okay. So it is called as the abiotic and biotic types. Abiotic means what? Non-living agents, those are required for the pollination. While the agents which are living organisms, they are called as the biotic agents. Now abiotic again divided into two parts. The first one, it is called as the anemophily, and second is called as the hydrophily. As the name indicates the meaning, but it is not animos means animal. Remember that animos, it is the word from the Greek, and animos that indicates wind. Wind is the agent for the pollination. While hydro, you are most popular about this word hydro, that is the water. Water is essential for the pollination. So water that play just like the agent for the pollination. Okay. While biotic, where many things or many living organisms are involved in the pollination. So biotic pollination, that having entomophily, then ornithophily, and last one, that is the chiropterophily. So entomophily, ornithophily and chiropterophily, those are known as the biotic agents. So first let us discuss about the anemophily, where the wind is the agent for the pollination. Now certain adaptation takes place because wind is non-living. So the adaptations are like that. Adaptations in the plants or the flowers, especially these flowers, they are non-conspicuous. They are very small. If you see, when the agents are like the non-living things, that is abiotic, wind is the agent, flower is, that means they are very small, they are non-conspicuous, that means they are not attractive, not decorative. So no color. No fragrance, and no nectar. So all these things are required only for the when the agents are biotic, that the living things. And to attract these things are important. But when wind is the agent, which is not considered as a living organism, these plants show such type of the adaptations. That means the flowers are very small, they are non-conspicuous. They doesn't have any attractive color because the wind do not require any type of the color for the attraction or the smell, and no fragrance, no smell or the fragrance or the sweet smell like that, and no nectar. So all these are not essential things for the wind to attract, and hence these things are totally present when we talk about the entomophily. These all are the requirements for the attraction of these birds or the insect for the pollination. Okay, but what are the things which are required for the wind pollination or the anemophily? That is, flowers, they show such a type of characteristics. In addition to that, pollen grains, they are lightweight. They have very lightweight, so that they easily carry with the current of the wind, and hence these pollen grains, they have lightweight. Then next is that what the pollen grains are produced in a large quantity. Pollen grains are produced in a large quantity for ensure the pollination, that is to increase the chances of the pollination. Next thing is that if you see about the stamen and the carpel, stamens, they are elongated. Then about the carpels, that is the filaments or the style. Style is also elongated. In some cases, the stigma is a feathery. Stigma is feathery. That means these pollen grains which carry along with the wind current can be get easily trapped, so that the surface of the stigma, which is normally like this, so this stigma that is having feathery structures, so that these pollen grains get easily attached, trapped inside this feathery stigma. So the chances of pollinations are increased, and hence these conditions which are very essential for the anemophily. That means when the flowers, they have such a type of adaptation, the wind pollination is very easily possible. Okay, so these are the things. An example for that, mostly all the cereals, means that is a rice or wheat, bajra, jowar, all these type of the crops, they have such a type of the adaptations which are very simple, because you know that we don't know even the flowers, they are not attractive, and hence we don't know about the details of these flowers. Okay, that means they are not attractive, and you know that they are not utilizing for to offer to each other. You know, in the rose day, these flowers, rose like flowers, they offer to each other. Why? Because they are decorative, they have very good smell or the fragrance. But these things are only for not to attract human being, but they are for the living organisms. But here the wind is the agent for the pollination. No things are required, and hence they are absent. But what are the things essential? That is the pollen grains, they are lightweight, easily carry, and the wall is smooth. The pollen grain having the smooth wall. Second is that they are produced in the large quantity, so that to increase the chances of the pollination. While the next one, stamens are elongated, and then style is elongated also. That means they expose to the air for the easy pollination. And second, next thing is that the feathery stigma is there, that the chances of to trap the pollen grains, as well as if you see the stamen, the anthers are versatile. Anthers are versatile. For example, see here, so the attachment of this anther with the filament, it is a mere attachment, very point, small point, so that this anthers easily swims along the very breeze, that is having a small current of the air, and easily this anther swims along this, so it is a versatile, so that the pollen grains easily liberate out and can reach towards the receptive stigma. So these are the adaptations which we can see in the anemophily. Okay, now the hydrophily, last point we will cover this, and we will see the biotic afterwards. Okay, so the first one, hydrophily, as the name indicates, the water is the agent for the pollination. water is the agent for the pollination, and this hydrophily again divided into two parts, that is the hypohydrophily and epihydrophily. As the name indicates, hypo means below the water level. When the pollination takes place, it is called as the hypohydrophily, while the epihydrophily means what? The pollination takes place along the current, that is the surface of the water. Pollination takes place, hence the epihydrophily. So hydrophily, when the plants they are aquatic, not necessary all, but many plants which are present inside the water known as aquatic. These aquatic plants require this water for the pollination, and when the pollen grains, same things are there. You can see here that the pollen grains, they are somewhat heavier than the water. You can say the specific gravity of this pollen grain is more than the water, so that these pollen grains sink into the bottom and they are easily taken by the stigma of the plants or the flowers, and they can do the easy pollination. So that is the hypohydrophily. So many examples are there, but the Zostera, which is commonly called as the seagrass, Zostera, where hypohydrophily takes place, and these flowers, especially, they are of the same type of the adaptation. That means no attractive, they are inconspicuous. Second thing, that these flowers without any color or very pale color type, not attractive, no fragrance, and no any type of the nectar, because all these are the not necessary things for the water for the pollination, and hence these all things are same, repeat with this, having the same type of the adaptations requirement for the water type of the agent for the pollination. So the Zostera like plants which show hypohydrophily, but one more thing is that the plants which are present inside the water, they are unwettable. That means they may secrete some substance which is just like the wax, like coating is there, so that it prevent to wet it, and hence they are unwettable. So the pollen grains are smooth, and what I told, that the specific gravity of this pollen grain is more than the water, so that they easily sink at the bottom and they are trapped by the stigma of the other plants or the female plants. So this is the hypohydrophily. In the second one, that is the epihydrophily, where the pollination takes place at the surface of the water. That means the specific gravity of the pollen grain is same to that of the water. Okay. Now the same thing is there, and the example is Vallisneria, where these plants, the flowers come out to the surface of the water, and hence the female flowers, that is the female parts, that is the stigma, that is having, when it is at the middle of the level of the water, during the maturity, when the pollen grains are on the surface of the water, this flowers shows a special type of the mechanism. That means they are coiled, but when they are after getting the maturity, they uncoiled and they come out from the water level to the surface level, so that easily they can trap this pollen grain. So the same thing that is having the adaptations in the hypohydrophily as well as the epihydrophily, that these flowers, they have the stigma which is easily that trap the pollen grains, and the pollination can be possible. So in this way, such a type of the adaptations, more they are similar to that of the anemophily. And this is all about the hydrophily. Examples I have mentioned here, the Zostera, which is the hypohydrophily, and second is the Vallisneria, which is the epihydrophily. But one more thing I must say to you, that all the aquatic plants, they does not obey, or they do not require hydrophily type of the agent or the water. Water is not agent for all hydrophytes, because some they may have entomophily, some they may have the anemophily type of the agents for the pollination. While in entomophily, you can see that the flowers are decorative. So the aquatic plants, for example, Nilambo, Nymphia, you know that these are very attractive. The flowers are attractive, big one, conspicuous. they may have the nectar, they may have the fragrance, all the things are present, and hence they are not pollinated by the water, but they are by the insects. So all aquatic plants, they do not require water as the agent for the pollination, but there are some exceptions. Okay, so in this way, hydrophily, what are the adaptations I have given. So to the next lecture we will see about the biotic agents, how they are pollinated by different biotic agents. Okay, so let us stop here. We will discuss tomorrow and we will continue the same topic. Thank you.